Well, okay, what you just said disagrees with what we said earlier, because even when we were talking not 5 minutes ago, me and you both had the point that if I have an organism which is in two different environments, which under environmental pressure, right, the DNA
Yeah.
may not be mutated at all, but the same gene, the same product that's produced may serve different functions in that particular case, which is generating novel information, which is so information, at least from a biochemical standpoint, would be how how some kind of structure behaves in the organism that it's found in.
Okay.
Could
Okay.
also
So
look
so
at it
far,
from the
and
aspect.
I get what you're saying. So far we've agreed that there are limits. We're not going to get a dog as small as a mouse, even though they're both mammals, and apparently, I guess they're related through common ancestry. I think you believe that. At the same time, we see a degradation of genetic information. We see a lot of these new traits and a lot of these new say varieties based on pre-existing information. What would add? What mechanism is going to add, say, new genes, new novel information? Like what's going to overcome that degradation found in mutations? Go ahead.
Well, sure. So I mean, what could cause new information? You could have polyploidic organisms. You can have viral infections. You can have organisms like viruses, for example, that insert their own DNA into the DNA of its host, which for some reason, which may unexpectedly create or extend some kind of new protein, causing it to
So,
have some kind of new function.
okay,
You
so
could have,
let's take these, obviously bit by bit. We don't want to, name 10 and only be able to talk about two. So these polyploidy organisms, would that be, say, based on gene duplication? Is that like duplicating of the existing information? Is that what you're saying?
well, it could be gene duplication, but it could also be duplication of an entire chromosome.
Okay, no, and I understand. So if I give you a copy of a book that you already own, okay, and say I start putting typographical errors and misspellings in that second copy of the book you already own, now all you have is a messed up copy of the original book. You have nothing new and meaningful. And as a matter of fact, gene duplication leads to many diseases and disorders. Like I believe Down syndrome is based on a duplication of a certain gene. So once again, mutations are not construction; they're destruction. So I don't see how that's gonna
So, not
take your fish to
necessarily.
fisherman.
So, the point is that although the vast majority of mutations appear to be damaging to an organism, there are a few cases like the duplication of PLP genes, which produce venom in snakes, is an example of a beneficial mutation for at least that particular variety of snake.
Okay,
So,
so
so let me use my own analogy for a moment, right?
yeah,
Let's say I have cousins, I have little, I have well, not children, but friends of mine have children. Occasionally, look after them and playing with Lego blocks, right? A single Lego block on its own can't do much, but combinations of those Lego blocks, various combinations that they can assume, and combining them can create novel structures.
okay,
And
so
once
I,
again,
yes, but do we observe this in real time? Because if we actually look at these gene duplications that you're talking about, and I think we might be able to agree to this because I think you just said that the overwhelming amount of mutations are deleterious, but it's not really a common event, right? So even 0.01, say, duplications per gene per million years, say for example, macroevolution, your pond scum to people type evolution, it needs a lot more than the 0.01, because the massive amounts of living things we see today, and we do see a lot of living things, the numbers just don't add up even with
well,
their millions or billions of years. Go ahead.
so here's kind of the crucial crux of the argument, right? Is that so that evolution, as we agreed earlier, doesn't occur within individual organisms. It occurs within populations. So an analogy I could use for this case is that let's say me and you are playing a game of dice, and we have two dice in front of us, and you ask, "Hey, what's the probability that I'm going to roll two sixes on the same roll of a die?" Okay, well that corresponds to some probability. Now take the same situation, but instead of two dice, I have 2 million, and I ask the same question. Well, what's the likelihood that I'm going to roll two dice that have a six? well, the odds increase exponentially, because especially when you're dealing with organisms that reproduce quite quickly.
Okay, so like, are we
Billion.
are we shuffling, you know, the pre-existing, like, is this, could this be considered recombination? Like, are we shuffling pre-existing genes, and this is what you're saying are going to lead to new traits, new structures overall, right? Change in allele frequency over time. That's what's going to take your bacteria biology.
So what's going to hold on before you do that. So what's going to take you from what's going to add information to the genome, which is the question you initially asked me, is the fact that individual organisms may not produce a beneficial mutation, but populations, because they're extremely large, because mutations happen on a day-to-day basis, a single mutation that is considered beneficial to that organism will pass on to its generation easier than mutations that are detrimental to a population.
Okay, but if you look at a beneficial mutation, you know, I believe there are beneficial outcomes. I mean, there's a mutation on wingless beetles. Okay, so they had a mutation that resulted in the loss of wings. Okay, but the thing is, the island they were living on was windy, so it was actually a selective advantage. It was a beneficial outcome because now they can survive better. But at the end of the day, they lost the information for wings, right? So it was a degraded advantage, and the majority of examples, say, of beneficial mutations that you're talking about, they are deleterious and they are the result of a loss of information. That's still not going to take your bacteria to biologist. Go ahead.
But hold on.